Всім привіт! Мене звати Сашко Перемот, я представник команди Game Dev Dow. Я сьогодні буду вести інтерв'ю з Waelом Amrом. Це CEO Frogwares, одна з найбільших і найуспішніших українських геймдев-компаній. Ми будемо розмовляти про те, як створюються AA-ігри в Україні і чому Україна гарно підходить для створення цих ігор. Please sit.
Thank you.
Дякую. Я одразу вас попереджу, що це моє перше публічне інтерв'ю і перше публічне інтерв'ю англійською, тому я дуже перепрошую за кожен let me speak from the bottom of my heart, який станеться. Будь ласка, вибачте. А ще я підозрюю, що більшість з вас дивились колись туторіали індусів, тому не треба, будь ласка, жалітися на мою промову. So, we can start now? Okay, nice to have you.
Thank you.
I know a lot about you because it's my job. I know you were a firefighter in the French military. I know you really love Ukraine and a big friend of Ukraine, but not all the people in this room know who are you. So tell us a little bit more about who is Wael Amr.
I think I will just talk about the Frogwares part. So I started Frogwares 25 years ago, in 2000, and we've been working on the AA since from the start. I think we shipped something like 20 or 25 games, and we are probably one of the only game publisher, publishing our own titles on all platforms. With, I would say, this extended life. Yeah, but that's about it.
Okay, it was our setup. So we go down in our topic. So how will you describe AA games in simple terms, and what makes them different from AAA or indie game?
So AA games are, first of all, I mean, in terms of audience, that doesn't mean a lot, but in terms of budget and production, that's probably games that are between 1 and 10 millions. I think today the bar is a bit higher. It's probably 15, 20 millions in terms of budget. And from the audience side, what is expected from AA games is games that are a bit innovative, that take risks where AAA cannot take them, that have decent and high quality part of production, not all the games, but certain bits of it. And this is, I would say, a range of games that is really liked by gamers, hardcore, and some of them being casual. Yeah, but what I think it is, generally speaking, I can name in the actuality like Expedition 33 that was released very recently, which is a AA games with a very high success, and I think it's a good contender for our discussion to talk about what is the range of game and what are the challenges and successes that they can meet here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And why do you think AA games important for today's player, and why AA games better for trying new ideas? And it is true that they are trying new ideas?
So let's say that there are three categories of games. You have indie titles, AA, AAA. Indie titles, by definitions, are limited in their capacity of production. You cannot have complex 3D, you cannot have lots of animations, cannot have a lot of VFX. You can have excellent, brilliant, focus, ideas, narrowed scope, but they have, I would say, a ceiling in terms of production. AAA are about risk adverse, huge teams, years and years of development. A few years back, I remember people that I know from the industry in big publishing houses that were saying the cost of the AAA is always skyrocketing. It never ends. And to the point of these companies, while being huge Japanese or American ones, were afraid of this cost because they cannot control them. It's like a snowball. And AA is between the two. So it is something where you have a part of innovation, and at the same time you have a quality of production where people think, okay, I can pay $30, $40, $60 for this experience, which is not the case for an indie. And while very often for a AAA, it's actually barely enough. So that's where it places them, if I understood well your question. And maybe I have another point on that. Let me check.
Sure. Take your time.
Thank you.
We're all nervous here, so it's first for Wael too, so maybe a little bit applause.
Thank you. No, I would say that in terms of product, this is where you can find the right balance. You can have an interesting return on investment. And since we are commercial companies, our goal is to make money and to be able to continue our activity. So, yeah, but that's it.
Little improv question. Can we say that AA games take better from both worlds, from indie games and AAA games?
Well, yeah, if you are a kind of half full glass, if you are half empty, you say they take the worst of them. And effectively, when you make a post-mortem of a product, you can actually see that you are not as innovative as you should be, and you're not as good as production as a AAA one. So when it works, you actually get the best of them, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And that's our foundation. So now we go to Ukraine. And first of all, we already have numerous strong, successful studios, but do we have world-class specialists? And it is art, game design, programming, or something else? Where Ukrainian game developers are strong?
I think essentially you have 3 points. The first one is that you have some track records. So the people doing Metro, the people doing Stalker, us, and few other companies, they have been here for some time, and they have been creating AA games, successful one, renowned internationally. So that works, and that makes an ecosystem where you have actually very good resources. I wouldn't necessarily separate the artists from the technical side. I think they are both equally good and renowned as such. And Ukraine is known as a company with a strong producing capacity in all these aspects. So that's definitely the first point. The second point, it is a little less true today, but it was true for a long time, and it allowed actually the ecosystem to exist. It was cost effective. So compared to Europe, I wouldn't even say the US because nothing compare with the US, but it was more cost effective, and it allows to have either bigger teams or to be able to take more risks, and that counts into establishing an ecosystem. This point is less true today because there are a lot of tax incentive in Europe with huge tax credits, like 30-40% of the overall cost, and of course that impacts the overall balance of the development. But even if we have costs that can be compared to Europe today, it's still a very interesting country in this aspect because there are people, there are strong educations, there is also a kind of freedom and ambition in the people here that is very much in line with what is required in game development. Yeah. The third point is a bit specific, but it's a capacity to resilience, and that has been proven in the last years. Game development is full of surprises and disappointment. You need to adapt all the time. You need to change. You need to break. You need to cancel, remove, and you need to be solid. You cannot just go with a demo, grow on it. You have a lot of hurdles along your ways. And with the people here, the mentality, the life they have, it's actually quite an advantage because they are more thrive to succeed even in front of adversity.
Thank you. Frogwares will release soon the Sinking City 2, and it will be already second games you're shipping during the full-scale war. Yes, and how did Ukrainian studios keep working during the war, and what does that say about people behind these games?
Well, I think the answer is in the question. If you can release a game during the war, it means that you have somehow the capacity to manage both things happening at the same time. What it says, I think, is that the focus on creating an international product, the will of independence, because if you create an international product and you get the money for it, you're not dependent on anyone else, and you can decide whether to invest further or to help the army or to help your friends and family. That I think says a lot, and you do that exporting goods, exporting software. I think it is a very good motivation for all the people working in this ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So let's dig a little bit deeper into why this size of games is perfectly fit for Ukrainian teams. In general, why team size for AA games it's good for Ukrainian market, game dev market?
So we have three categories of games. We have indies, AAA, and AA. I think indies are a good fit for everybody anywhere in the world. There is no limit to that. That said, it's probably easier for people from the Western culture, deep inside the Western culture, to adapt and create ideas that will work, because when you do indie, you need to find a particular niche that is going to resonate with your market share. And the market share of games today is something like 30-40% US, 50% Europe, and 10% rest of the world. So also you have a higher chance to get picked by influencers, press, market, and have better marketing bits if you are more in the equation with the Western culture. It might be unfair, but that's a fact. And so I think if we look generally, the indie scenes are more successful when they are coming from the West than they are coming from other parts of the world. AAA are absolutely another beast. I never worked into a AAA company, but it's not rare to have 300, 400, 500 people. And when you have 300, 400, 500 people or more working on a game, in the course of the game you have to work with a lot of service providers like QA, marketing, even full cinema studios to make mock-up sessions that are extremely complex. All of that required cost, organization, management, that I think in Ukraine we don't really have. There are structural reasons for that. And actually very few countries in the world have this kind of capacities. And most of them, they don't have just capacities, they have full ecosystem that have been adapted and developed for decades around that. That's US, Canada, UK, and a bit in France, a bit in Germany, but really not much beyond that. I exclude Korea, South Korea right now, and Japan, because I think they are even harder to relate to. So that leaves us with AA, and you have teams from 20, 70 people, 100, 120, that are their challenge to manage, but where the weight of the management doesn't have to be so big, doesn't have to be so high, and that leaves some free space for the people here to try, fail. It's an absolute necessity. You cannot succeed without failing in game dev. And the cost incurred, the risk that you take, they are, I would say, overall reasonable. I think also that in Ukraine, I was always impressed by the big IT companies, so the soft ones, having thousands of people in their teams, because I could not really easily conceive how it could be applied to our game dev with the number of tasks, dependencies that there are between the technicals and the artistic side, and all the peripherals that gravitate around that. The last point, and it's pretty much in details, in order to have companies that succeed to a certain level, they need temporarily some service providers helping them, whether outsourcing studios, whether people that have a dedicated expertise, like in UI or in combat, or different bricks that you would implement in their game. And this ecosystem does not really exist in Ukraine, to my knowledge. If I had to make the comparisons with Poland, the contrast is quite visible, and therefore that leaves the teams pretty much with themselves. And so you need to deliver your final product mostly at 80-90% doing things internally. That's a bit of a limit, but this limit is within the AA category, so that actually works.
I have a question about Ukrainian game dev ecosystem, but it will be later. Now I want to ask you this. It's not a secret that today game dev in a tough position, yes? Not just Ukraine, in the whole world. Last couple of years will be really rough. And in Ukraine there is a problem with talent retention and job creation. So I want to know your opinion about how can AA studios help stop brain drain from Ukraine? What do we need to do to stop this?
I'm not so sure about the trouble of the video game industry in general. It's not an opinion that I share. I think there have been the COVID years that led to a lot of investment and free money, and somehow it stopped. And therefore there had been a kind of bubble, and this bubble decreased. It, of course, directly influenced the people who were working the companies, but the market, if we have to speak about that, the sales of games, they are not really stopping. So they do not have the double-digit growth that they used to have, but still they are very good and comfortable. And I personally prefer to be on the game market in 2025 than when we were in 2006 or 2008 or 2012, because the volumes we sell today and we generate today are nothing in comparison to these years. Creating studios, giving the possibility to people to create titles, get experience, release titles, generate profit, is what is the base of the business and the base of an ecosystem. I think people will be interested to stay and work in those studios if this ecosystem exists better. And again, it is essentially structural at this point. In the countries where you have large gaming ecosystem, it's because it is encouraged by the state, by the VC, and one thing plus the other leads to that. So essentially, the way that Ukrainian game studios function is a bit a live and let live in terms of general policy with the state relationship, and so it has some structural limits. I would say. What is, I think, the thing that will remain, whatever are the tendencies ups and downs in the industry, if you have a good project and there are good people to work on it and decent wages, it will always work.
Okay, thank you. I have a next question. If you talk about Ukraine, what, on your opinion, are the structural and cultural challenges for our country in game development?
There are, of course, few of them, and in 25 years, since I'm a foreigner, I could see them a little bit from the side. I would say that generally speaking, I witnessed some things that were a little bit weird, and I think they have overall one common explanation. So when we hire people, it was not rare until recently that you get people in the interviews and they don't really know the name of the company they worked for or the name of the project they worked on. And I don't think that's their fault. There is a bit of a short-termism into this kind of interviews. It's a little bit shocking to see that, but I'm not exactly sure that it's on them. I think it's due to the opacity that the management of the companies like to have, and to a little bit not tell exactly where they are, what they do, how they do it. And that creates a series of a little bit fake or wrong perceptions for the people. We have people that have been working in the game industry 5 or 7 years. They never release a title. And as soon as the game industry is divided, you have the people who release titles, the one who didn't release title. It's definitely not the same experience. And when you have 5 or 7 years of experience, many people consider themselves as seniors. But a senior who never released the title is a bit an oxymoron. That leads generally people to not exactly know what is their place on the market, on the gaming market, for what kind of game they're working. And in the end, they cannot really establish what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. And even for the management, because if the management is not into production or is not a specialist of production, they might think that they can achieve this, while actually they don't have the people or they don't have really the capacity to do it. And that creates a kind of a blurry picture for many people in the industry here. And again, the reason for that is the management being unclear. The same management, by the way, I mean, there is an IT association of Ukraine, but there is still today, to my knowledge, no association of game dev where the owners or the CEOs or the production directors or whoever are meeting and discussing similar problems. This comes from the early years. Even in 2000 it was like that. It comes mostly, or at least the excuse that was given back then, because I had a numerous discussion about this over the years, It was about the competition regarding the human resources. So it's a kind of chicken and egg where people were afraid to meet with other companies because they were afraid to have their guys poached, something like that. And in the end, their guys do not grow that much because they don't really know what is their place inside the ecosystem. And I think we should be past that. I think the IT is really past that for many years, and I think the game dev should be past that, right?
And if you already in context of AA games in Ukraine, do you think we need government support for some studios?
I think that the traditional lead and let live shows some limits in every sector of activity. At some point, if you want to create something which is specific, you need to nurture it. You need to work on it on the side of the policymakers. It's not something that you really think about when you're 25 or 30, but later on you see the limits and you see the differences between the country that keeps growing. I would make a comparison with Poland, where probably the fact that the companies can go public, that they have access to VCs probably more easily, help to create a better ecosystem, and then the ecosystem is thriving and is globally growing. I think it's true for IT here. It's probably less true for game dev.
Okay, and we have today a lot of IT companies. And do you think the banks and big tech companies should play a bigger role in Ukrainian game dev? Maybe some kind of accelerator for smaller studios?
I'm not sure. What I mean I'm not sure is I really don't know. As far as I know, a lot of the IT companies are whether into seeds and startup or into outsourcing. Games are entertainment, so you need to have a fiber for entertainment and see how it's done. But I would say that today it's never been so easy as doing games. In the gestation of a game, you have the people working, and before 15, 20 years ago, you had two bits that were missing from your ends. That was the engine, the game tools, and the commercialization. And today, these two bits, they are freely accessible. Anyone can start making a game with Unreal, and it's free. And even when you commercialize this game with Unreal, I think the first $1 million of gross revenue is free of royalty, and after that, it's 5%. So the engine part, you're covered. And then you have the commercialization. When I started, I remember having to make like 20 different distribution contracts from US to Hungary with 20 different distributors of CDs and DVDs that were printing CDs, DVDs, selling them, paying you at 60, 90, 180 days if they were paying. It was, in terms of business, far, far more complex. Today, anyone can open any kind of structure and deal directly with Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Steam, Epic Game Store, GOG, and you directly have 10 worldwide resellers for your product. So this commercialization part has changed completely in the, I would say, last 7, 8 years. And you just have to make the game which is in the middle. So this is your idea, your talent, your capacity of innovation. So it has never been, I would say, so easy to do. Therefore, you have a critical mass of game with a lot of competition. But it's not because there is competition that you cannot thrive. So I don't know if the IT companies would be interested into supporting that, if they would be interested into having some entertainment department and looking into this. We saw that traditionally coming from the GAFAs or from a media company. Not too much from IT, to my knowledge, but why wouldn't it be an Ukrainian exception? Yeah.
Okay, I have only two questions. What about education? What you think universities should do in game dev, and shouldn't they?
Education is failing without consequences, so it's great. Again, in our early years, we were hiring programmers who didn't finish the institute, for example, or didn't finish their course, and they were working at the same time when they were studying. I would not do that today. I think it's better that people finish their studies and they acquire a more legitimate and better base of working and a critical sense into what we're doing. Education plays a great role. There are a lot of gaming academies or gaming schools that happened in the last 10 years, I think, in Europe, so it's not that old. And I think the Ukrainian approach was actually earlier than that, with these people directly going at an early age, working into game studios. But it takes away from them the possibility to invest time in technologies, into critical thinking, into the adoption of the trends that are happening quite fast. And I think, yes, the state could play this kind of school, but again, that's policymaker thinking from the infancy up to the commercialization, thinking a whole ecosystem. Otherwise, they will train people that will eventually go away, which is not particularly interesting.
Yeah, I agree. The last question. You mentioned ecosystem a lot today, a couple of times. And what does a strong Ukrainian AAA ecosystem look like in 5 years, in further future?
Ideally, if they were, therefore, some policy making that will be favorable to games, that the investors, the VCs, the incubators would therefore follow in this trend, we would end up with, I don't know, 10, 20 AA companies. And that will be a pretty strong foundation to have probably a couple of AAA studios and enough resources, shifting companies and going here and there, growing some decent expertise. It will allow to have different genres covered, generally speaking, and that people would be interested into joining companies and working these companies, establishing careers for themselves. Yeah, 10, 20 companies, I think, would be the objective to reach.
Okay, thank you. It's really, really nice to talk to you again. I really admire what Frogwares do, what you do. Шановні слухачі, давайте поаплодуємо Wael'у. Давайте подякуємо йому. На цьому ми закінчуємо. Будемо освободжати сцену для наступного спікера. Дякую вам дуже.
Thank you, everybody.